personal branding. Can you define it for us? Why is it important? Why should anyone in this audience here?
So first of all, thank you guys so much for coming. It means a lot to us to have you here at VeeCon and at our session today. So shout out to you guys first for being here. Personal branding. A lot of people think personal branding is about self-promotion. It's really about leadership. If you have something that you're passionate about, that you're an expert in, you need to share it with the world. And if you guys think, oh, I'm a personal trainer, there's 100 personal trainers on the internet, but they don't have your personality. They don't have your secret sauce. And I met somebody who said, oh, I do this, but didn't get any content. Maybe their content didn't get traction yet. I said, you have an audience, you just haven't found it yet. And their audience, they kept on trying and trying and trying, and then they boomed because their content just kept on resonating. And so, build your personal brand. Your name is the only thing you guys actually own. So you need to protect it and treat it like a currency and know what it's worth and how to bring it value.
I appreciate that so much. Y'all feel good about that, right? David, there's something I wanted to ask you about decoupling from a personal brand side. I think a lot of times, I just touched on it where it's this conversation of is it self-promotion, and I think a lot of that can supersede maybe the essence of what it should be. How can we decouple the personal brand versus like content and social media? Like, how do you distinguish those things?
You actually look at Shakespeare. I'm a little bit older than most people that do content. So Shakespeare said something interesting that hasn't always been true, but somehow he had the foresight to realize it is true. And it's the whole world is your stage. So if you look back there at the activation we did, it wasn't that we wanted to be on the main stage because that content is weak, right? That stage over there that we built that's tiny, that's built for the world is your stage. The whole world is your stage. And to complement what Maha said, your frequency is your brand, right? And your frequency is made up of your skills, your knowledge of who and what, and your desire, which is that secret sauce. Being in sports for so long and running the sports agency for so long with Lee, big brands like Troy Aikman, Steve Young, Warren Moon, it wasn't that they were great football players, because I could list out really great football players that didn't have the frequency, but they also, as big as the audience of the NFL is, it's not nearly as big as the audience that I address. 7.6 billion people. 10% of those 7.6 billion people, regardless of whether you're digital hospitality, an accountant, or a famous sports agent, 10% of those people will resonate with you no matter what. No matter what. Now, you got to realize the hardest part is 10% are going to not resonate with you no matter what. No matter what. They're going to hate you. Someone once told me when I first started building a brand, and Gary's helped me a lot, they literally said, dude, you're an idiot. You stole gratitude from Gary Vee. Now, I'm a lot older than Gary. My grandma taught me at 3 gratitude, and it's been reinforced every day of my life. So it's like physically impossible, mathematically incorrect. So even if I stole gratitude from someone, it was not Gary Vee, nor does it matter. So find your frequency, and what happens through consistent content is that you learn your own frequency. It resonates with more of the 80% that's there, and then ignore the 10% that love you and ignore the 10% that hate you, because they'll always be there. Focus in on the 80% that will find your frequency and build your brand.
One thing I want to double back on, because I think a lot of us need to hear it. It's not always going to be perfect, right? You're not going to get it right the first time. You're not going to get it right all the time. How do you deal with the pushback, right? Like if folks, you're putting yourself out there, you put all this energy into working on your brand, and you're feeling like there's friction against it. How do you overcome that?
Still, once again, looking at it in the context of energy or frequency, it has 3 characteristics. Energy, that's money, behavior, brand. It does 3 things. It aggregates on itself. It attracts more of the like energy. It gives you exponentiality as far as outcome comes. So mathematically, if you're consistent and keep building on that frequency, you're going to go from 1 person to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, not 1 a day. And then finally, it gives you the best human nature benefit, which is acceleration. Because human beings want instant gratification, and although good behaviors create good progress and bad behavior creates bad progress, we don't see that progress. So you actually have a better quantitative availability and awareness to progress by having acceleration of your efforts. So those three things, the characteristics of energy, are applied to your brand, your frequency as well.
Max, I want you to jump in here because you and I have been speaking about this a little bit. You have a bit of a different approach than the online persona and the online approach to social. I mean, you do leverage it, but I would say you feel like your strength is a bit different. Can you share a little bit as you've been on the journey with your family brand and how y'all might approach it differently?
Yeah, I think even before Stealing the Stable, for me, it was all about just like one-on-one, whether it was in-person networking or responding to random DMs. And I was just saying to him before we got on here, it was like, I could talk to someone on DM for like 2 years, and I've like never met them in person, feel like I know them, meet them in person, be like, who was that? And then go back onto Instagram and just like fully know who that person was. So I think for me, on the personal brand side, it's more of a one-on-one networking, and that's just been the best way for me. But I think that those roots helped when I started doing Stealing the Stable, because that's what kind of, I think, helped us rocket ship a bit to a larger community and utilizing those networking relationships that I had before.
Do you feel like it gives you also a bit of an advantage because of that one-on-one dynamic versus like trying to talk to so many different people at once? You maybe go for more of a few mindset that can influence different spaces?
Yeah, I think the way at least we grew Stealing the Stable so far has been pretty much word of mouth. It's been zero in marketing, so I bring that back to having those one-on-one relationships and having those be the spokespeople for us, because there's no better way to spread or market than word of mouth, especially if you're spending $0 on something. So for us, that's kind of been the way to get to where we've been so far.
Sam, I want you to jump in here. I know you had your book that came out, Change Starts With You. Talk to us about that and the different things that you do and how that's been helpful at promoting your brand, right? Because sometimes you can be in these spaces and have narratives thrown on you, but you're clearly showing us that you can go into these different spaces in different ways. Can you share a little light on how you're doing that?
Yeah, well, just a little bit of background. Someone asked me backstage, because I played 9 years in the NFL, so I've played in the stadium a few times. I'm on ESPN now, and I speak and I write, and someone said, well, how'd you transition from what you were doing before, which is, in their mind, it was ESPN, or excuse me, it was in the NFL, to now you're a speaker? And my response to him was, well, dude, I've always been a speaker. Like, I've always been encouraging. I feel like that's what God put me on this earth to do. And so football, in so many ways, was just a sidebar. And even now I'm on ESPN, and I love it. You talk about the criticism, the critique, right? Like, you hear that all the time. The 10% feels like more like 90% critique. It's like social media trolls. If you're one of them, no offense to you. Actually, a lot of offense to you. It's my chance to get you back. But it was like I've always been that. Like, I feel like I've been put on this earth to speak, to encourage. And so, yes, I played 9 years in the NFL, and yes, like, and the cool thing you talked about the book, Change Starts With You, like, that's just another like iteration of who I am. I felt like speaking was my thing, and all of a sudden we've all been through trauma in life, right? You go through whether it's injuries or losing loved ones or job or company, business. Like, I went through some trauma and some drama, right? I remember breaking my leg one year, tearing my pec another year, getting released from the team. Like, all this glitz and glamour that you see, you don't see the other stuff. And all of a sudden, the stuff that had been hidden in my heart started to come out. I started to write. And I shared some of what I wrote with a book agent and a publisher, and they read it, and typical athlete, they think, oh, who wrote it for you? I'm like, oh, I did. They're like, no, we know it's your idea, but most people with, you're an athlete, who wrote it? And I said, I did. And they said, well, Sam, you're not a football player, you're a writer. And so, like, the whole point about personal brand is this thing of, like, who are you? And why are you here? Because if you keep on chasing the things that you think other people, not even that you think, that people have defined you as, they don't know who you actually are and who you've been and where you've been to and what you've been through. And so, that's what's going to take you wherever you're going to go in life. It's your story, your history, right? Your backstory. I talk about it in my book, right? I talk about this idea of builders, right? Because I talk about change starts with you. Like, we all need, like, architects in our life to help build whatever dream. You talk about how you work with Gary Vee and like how you've helped him kind of like build what he's building, even the relationships that you all, we can't do it alone. And so, like, my main message is this deal of community. It's not like, my personal quote unquote brand. No, you need people who know you, who see you, not just on social media and like also not just in DMs. I've done the DM thing too, responding to random people. You need people who actually know you in real life and who care for you in real life and who can speak to who you were before the thing that you did that blew up, like before that person or thing that you're gonna do. Like that's when I think about personal brand. I think it's more than authenticity. I think it goes to integrity. It goes to being whole, right? And anyone knows, like I'm like a math nerd, right? An integer is a whole number. 1, 2, 3, not like 2.5 or 1.75 or 3, 4, like being whole. And so that word integrity, personal brand, like integrity goes back to that idea of like, who am I? Before football, before whatever, writing and whatever, it's like I was an encourager. I was a builder. Rally people together, that's what I do. And a competitor. And so those are the things that I think when you talk about like who are you and your personal brand, I think it makes sense to go back to like who you were before and those things that like, lit that fire in you and remember that.
I think,
I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna build on that. So building your personal brand is not about what you do on social media. And what he was kind of talking about, even David, and going back to Shakespeare, it's how you are one-on-one. It's how do you network with people, how do you treat people, that's building your personal brand too. How are you not just on the field, but off the field? So just a lot of people worry about building a personal brand means I need to be building something on social media and create videos and audio and podcasts and content and filming. I don't have time or the skills to do that. It's how you network with people at conferences or events. You're building your personal brand, and I just want the offline is even more important than the online.
I think the same thing as like for me before Season Stable, like that's all it was about for me. It was like those connections. Like I would do projects for free, and people were like, "You're fucking crazy. Like you should charge a ton of money." I would connect people who you would think could reach out to anyone and someone would answer, whether it's a DM or in person, because they're a football player, they're a music artist, and they're just afraid to reach out. And I would make a connection, and I would never ask for anything. But I think that laid the groundwork once I had my thing, to then go back to them and ask. So I think for me, it's all been around relationships, and then I think that's what sparks the community we're talking about.
Yeah.
And to add, because I think it's real important, having historically looked at how amplification works, we were limited by how we could amplify our brands. And so if you look in the context of what social really is, it's truly only a platform for amplification. So when you look at the core of why people build these communities, and for my mission, I want to build a community simply of people that want to help each other and know people who can help each other. It's that simple. And give people the tools to do so. But the basis of my brand, personal brand, which I didn't believe I could do 10 years ago, and Gary convinced me to do 6 years ago, is 3 things: in person, on the phone, email, and that's what creates the media. Right? Because remember, we have technology that didn't exist even 10 years ago that allows you to capture everything you do in person, capture what you do on the phone, capture what you do with email, and that's why I personally do my own. And I work really hard, like you, because I'm a math guy, efficiencies, because it's really important to me, although I can be cryptic, to make sure that I have templated answers so I can quickly get back personally to everyone, but I'm inputting what people are listening for so that I know what to amplify, because in this Shakespearean stage theory, you need to capture everything that looks or resonates like you, then you modify it to the platforms, then amplify it to the community that resonates with you, and then most people haven't gotten this side of it. There's a perpetual side that you're gonna see. If you're a spiritual person, there's something called the Akashic Records that basically is a cloud, and it includes everything that's happened in the past and everything that's gonna happen in the future. Whether you believe that shit or not, doesn't matter to me, but I'm already seeing the inception of perpetual content where that I have a full-time employee that literally is going around here today and yesterday that literally says a few things. Hi, what do you do? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Would you like to meet Dave Meltzer? I think he can help you. 3 things happen. People go, I love that dude, yes. I hate that dude, right? And then he gets a chance to reintroduce his business. But most people say this, and they still will 10 years from now when my brand is exponentially growing even farther. Who the hell is Dave Meltzer? But because of the perpetual nature of content and frequency, he now can ask you, oh, do you have Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever? Here's Dave Meltzer, and now he can instantly have them resonate with me or not. And I can build the community faster because of the stage theory: capture, modify, amplify, and perpetuate.
And even if I could just build on that to that point, because like these are all great points. And we're all here and we're listening to great speakers and learning so much. And we see people on stage and think, man, you have all the answers. And the fact of the matter is that we don't.
Yes.
And we're learning. Just like everyone in the audience and the stage, on any stage you see. And just to your point, you talked about Shakespeare to begin. And we all heard like to be or not to be, right? But if you think about what he actually said, it says to be or not to be. That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the pangs and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against them, and by opposing end them. He talks about to die, to sleep no more. Like Shakespeare, even in his writing, talks about some of the questions, like life's questions. And we all want answers, but like, have we sat enough to think about, man, like, am I going after the right thing? Because I've been around, you talk about, somebody was talking earlier about like billions and billionaires. Like I've been around millionaires and billionaires. And a lot of these guys are empty and hopeless. Right, I negotiate the collective bargaining agreement in the NFL, so NFL owners, like I'm sitting in meetings with them, like, what are we actually going after? And so when we talk about that brand piece, but also that piece about community, about like, man, what am I living for, my purpose? I think sometimes we all, not just in the audience or in the stage, but we all need to like take a beat, take a step back, take a breath, like, and evaluate. Because if you don't, you'll spend your whole life chasing followers or fame or fortune. And the worst part is you just might get it and be empty. So those are the things that I think about when we talk about some of the heroes.
Amazing. I think Dr. Seuss, he wrote a book about this guy, right? Sam I Am. Sam I Am. Bam.
Well, I wanted
Shit.
to ask you about that because he touched on something that's very
That's good
important.
shit.
Is what does it look like when you're doing it right? What does it feel like when you're doing it right when it comes to your personal brand? Because we see a lot of things, we talk about a lot of things here, obviously, but like, what does it truly mean when you're doing it the right way, in your opinion?
I think I can only speak about my own experience. I think I feel comfortable talking about what I know. And I don't talk about things I don't know. And so you know you're doing it right, but it feels authentic to you. So for example, if you guys follow me on Instagram, I, in the beginning, was posting a lot of pictures about my trips and my dog, and I'm like, I'm not putting myself on camera, but I do communications. I've been doing it for 30 years for some of the biggest companies in the world, Google, Netflix. Obviously, I work with Gary, so I'm very fortunate because I'm very close to the sun and I learn a lot from him. But I didn't want to be on camera, and I didn't want to do things. So I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast, because then it's just my voice. And then I don't have to worry about if I look fat or what my hair looks like, because you don't want to put things out there because you don't like how you look.
Imagine looking like me and doing it. I'm bald and fat. And I work out all the time.
So I had to get on the on-ramp. I'm like, let me start with doing what I feel comfortable doing. I love listening to podcasts. It's easy to talk. I like doing that, so I'll do that. And then I started to videotape them, and now I start talking about personal branding and communications and other things. So how to do it right is to do something that feels natural for you, where you don't feel like it's an effort, and it feels something that you can do consistently.
I love that.
I think to build on that too is like authenticity. Like,
I was literally just about that.
like, yeah, it's like be authentic, have a real story, and it's like it's easy to get caught up in like the creator economy too, right? Where it's like you have an audience, you feel like you should be putting something out. And like for me, it's like if you look at my personal Instagram, it's not like I'm creating like in your face content. It's just like it's not my personality. That's why the one-on-one for me in person is more my style. But for Seagull and Stable, it's like it's been a little bit easier because there is a heritage story and there is authenticity and there is a good purpose of it. So I think for what you're talking about is like right in point to have that authenticity, care about what you're talking about, the content you're making, and your mission for it.
Yeah, totally. Talk to me about, one of the things I've been thinking about is we go to a lot of different things, and there's the tone around fake it till you make it. And I think a lot of people might feel multiple ways about this statement. And I think it means well, but sometimes it can also be misleading. I wonder if Either you want to jump on that one first.
I see it a lot. I talk about people standing in front of shit they don't own, pretending who they are. And there's something in just personality that's really important and I think is applicable to how much of the bullshit you want to put up with because of just being entertained. And it's that everyone, if anyone here has siblings or relatives, anyone? Yeah. The most difficult thing about our relationships of siblings and relatives is that we care so much about what they think, but they only know a snapshot of you. And we continually grow, and so when we go back to our grandparents or we see our younger siblings, they only remember the guy that sat on their chest and took their spit and slipped it back up, right? You know, I always say, I'm not sure Jesus had a brother, but what the F would Jesus' brother say? Like, that's the Son of God? That motherfucker stood in front of me and beat the shit out of me and said really dirty things to me. That's the way my brothers would probably talk about me, and I got 4 of them. And so I think when you make that applicable to just using your own filters of how productive is this in my life to watch, and how accessible is it, meaning what am I receiving from it, how accessible does it make me to others, but most importantly, the gratitude lens of where can I find light, love, and lessons in this snapshot of humility, not in arrogance, because those people don't know what they don't know just like you do, and they may be trying to fake it while they make it. And I appreciate that because some people do make it that way. But I think it's really important for the eyes of the beholder to find the light, the love, and the lessons in what you're watching about. And with AI, you're going to find that people like Max are going to be exponentially, the great divide is going to occur from that we're going to demand experiences like this because the deep fake Dave Meltzer that is like, don't meet me outside in front of Peyton's, I think you're all dicks. You're going to have to like show up in person to see, was that really Dave? It didn't sound like Dave. He called me a dick, right? Like honestly, that's what is going to make these experiences so important.
I think that there's no longevity on that. There's no longevity in faking it and make it. You can only fake it so long, or if you don't make it, then
Great point.
you should stop. So I think, and that's the same thing for like a brand. It's like, if you're just creating a brand to create a brand, it's only gonna last so long. You might have a really good 2 years and do well and be fine. But like if you want to see a brand out, really build it the way you want to see it built out and have that longevity, it's pretty hard to fake it.
I think in the fake it to make it, it's along the same lines as imposter syndrome. So a lot of people feel like, should I be doing this? Am I the right person? Why should I be because I think their personal brand is really about them. But I really want to encourage everybody to do something that's really difficult, and that's ask for help. So if you don't know, ask. Your personal brand doesn't mean you're not asking for other people to help you. So I just think that's a hard thing even for me to do sometimes is ask for help because I feel like it's my personal brand, I should know.
I should know all of this.
Yeah, but that's the imposter syndrome sort of taking over, silence that voice in your head and say, you know what, there's some things I do know and the things I don't, I'm gonna go ask for help.
I think one of the things also unpack a lot about what you're saying is all of this takes work, right? Like I think at the end of the day, you gotta understand it's day to day. Every day you're gonna get a little bit better. You're not gonna start out the day and be the expert in the room. You're not gonna be the expert in the room 10 years from now. And I don't even think you should want to be the expert in any room. You should want to be in a room where you have people that are adding to the conversation, stretching you beyond where you can be. We got a couple minutes left here, so I want to make sure we have time to take some questions because there's somebody in here.
And if I could real quick before,
Yeah,
you know, it might be like 2 less questions. Hopefully more. I love questions, but like, I think it's a really good point. My teacher would say, hey man, if you have something to say, you raise your hand, better be good. Hopefully it's good. The whole world is faking it. People talk about fake it till you make it. Everyone's faking it. So if everyone's faking it, what stands out? Authenticity. Being you, being real, being human. So we talk about it, my first book is called Let the World See You. How to be real in a world full of fakes, right? I come from this culture of like, athlete, on TV, superstar, fake. And I think there's like a whole world of emptiness, because like faking it can be pretty empty. And there's another side that's reality. And the reality is like, hey, I do need some help. Hey, I'm not okay. Like, for me, like the most important lesson that I've learned over these last few years is like having a few people in my life who actually see me and know me and care. I mean, like the dirt, like the ugly side. Not like the one who's on TV and me. and they still accept me. I call it my board of directors. Like, it's like 4 people, 5 people. Like, my wife is one of them. Thankfully, she's still with me, right? My dad. I got 3 friends, like 3 people who like every single thing. Highest highs, lowest lows. And so like, that's real. That's real. All the other stuff, right? Like all the millions of followers and the cars, the Lambo, like, that's fake. Doesn't last, can't take it with you to the grave. Those relationships, that community we talked about, like who you are, like who God made you to be, like stepping and walking into that purpose, taking time, taking a breath, taking a step back to figure out who that is, and then like believing that. Nobody can take that from you, and that'll stand out. So you talk about personal brand, like you talked about it, you know, podcast. Like I love being on TV, straight up. Like, and it's kind of weird. Like I love being on TV. I'll walk by. I'll do a lot of shows on ESPN. I'll walk by airports if I'm not on TV. I'll be like, man, I should have been on. Like, why am I not on? It's weird, right? And people talk about like your smile, Sam, your smile. Like I saw like an Uber Eats driver in Chicago on the south side of Chicago, black dude from the hood. Uber Eats saw me and he was like, dude, no homo, but I love your smile. Like, no, and I was like, thank you. And he was like, for real. He's like, no, he's like, I'm just saying like, because it's real. Like I can feel you through the screen. So when you find that thing, maybe it's your smile, maybe it's your patience, maybe it's your peace, maybe it's your joy, maybe it's your passion. It'll cut through like a knife. Why? Because nobody's being real. Everybody's faking. So be the one to be real.
Sam always when he tells us We're only going to take 2 questions. I'll take that mic there, and then come on over here. All right. If y'all want to chat, go hang around a little bit afterward. So I can't say it'll be everybody, but we're here, so maximize your time. I'm going to go over here first, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Sure. My name is VeeCon, and thank you very much. I know most of you over the internet, and thanks to you, I like to be on stage and I like to be on TV too. I'll be honest. The problem I have in my life is I did all the great things I did, but I was hiding something very important from the world, which is I became a refugee as a kid. So thank God we have uniforms back in our schools because we look the same. So now that I've reached to a point where I want to change other people's lives, I struggle. How do I do it? So if you can answer that, thank you.
Not putting me on the spot. I mean, I think it's just being confident in your message and being confident in your story. And I think that is probably the number 1 thing that you can do. And you can, like we were saying, like get help being able to take that story and being able to tell that story. But as long as you're confident in that story and confident in putting yourself out there, and just know that some of the stuff that you put out there, people always have shit to say, and just not listen to it. You can cancel that out, then I think you should go for it.
And people need your story.
Thank you.
Yeah, people need it.
Thank you very much. Just one thing. Who can help me right now? I'm asking for help. Who can help me? Thank you very much.
Let's go here.
Hi, Chef Lizette. So this is a very safe environment, as Gary mentioned, but I want to ask Maha, woman to woman of color, what are you intolerant of in the world personally, and how do you execute that message? Does it commingle with your personal brand? Do you just go? How do you release it? How do you go there?
The first word that came into my mind was differences, right? So intolerant of like people not accepting other people's differences. So I'm Egyptian, I'm American, I'm different. I come from both worlds. But I think we want to have, Gary talks about this a lot, about less hate and more love. We have a group text chat that we all talk on with a bunch of people, and someone said, what is this group about? And Gary jumped in, and he's like, this is the love group chat, the no